Christopher Columbus is remembered as a man who changed the world, a symbol of exploration, ambition, conquest, and controversy. But behind the sails, behind the banners of royal Spain, behind the mythology later built around him, Columbus lived a life marked by obsession, political maneuvering, and a slow, agonizing physical collapse that would shadow him for decades. For more than 500 years, his legacy has swung violently between heroism and horror. Yet even now, most people only know the surface of his story. They know the voyages, the 3 ships, the discovery. What they rarely see is the man, the deal-maker, the opportunist, the religious fanatic, the harsh governor, the patient schemer, and the chronically ill sailor whose mysterious health problems may reveal more about his life than any diary entry ever could. To understand the unraveling of Columbus, we must start long before he boarded the Santa Maria, back in 1451, when a boy named Cristoforo Colombo was born to a poor wool weaver in the Republic of Genoa. A merchant's son with ambitions too large for Genoa. Columbus did not come from nobility. He wasn't groomed to be a statesman or a knight. He was merely the son of a craftsman, raised in a world where the sea was both a pathway to opportunity and a grave for the unwary. But Columbus had something that set him apart: restlessness. Even as a young man, he refused to settle into the life offered to him. By his 20s, he was traveling across Europe on behalf of wealthy Genoese families, gaining an informal education in trade, maps, navigation, and the politics of royal courts. Just as importantly, he was learning how power actually worked, how influence was bought, how alliances were formed, and how a clever man could climb a ladder built for someone else. Marriage into power. In 1479, Columbus made the most advantageous move of his early life. He married Filipa Moniz Perestrello, daughter of a respected Portuguese noble family. Through her connections, he gained access to the elite world of Portuguese exploration. Prince John of Portugal, Prince Henry the Navigator, the wealthy merchant houses directing Africa-bound expeditions. Suddenly, Columbus, the wool weaver's son, could mingle among the architects of Europe's expanding empires. But the marriage also came with shadows. Filipa was older than the average bride of her era, and her widowed mother was not wealthy. Columbus knew the marriage elevated him socially, but it came with limited financial gain. They had one son, Diego, but Columbus spent most of those early years abroad, pushing deeper and deeper along the African coast in search of fortune. By the time he returned, Filipa was dead. Her cause of death remains unknown. Columbus quickly settled her affairs, collected what he could, and took Diego under his care. The grieving widower wasted no time in shifting his attention back to ambition. A radical idea takes form. For centuries, Europeans relied on the Silk Road to access the riches of Asia. But wars, geography, and rising prices pushed traders to dream of alternatives. Some powers, like Portugal, were experimenting with routes around Africa. But Columbus had a different vision. He believed he could leapfrog the known world entirely by sailing west. But there was a problem, a fatal flaw that would haunt him. Columbus dramatically underestimated the size of the Earth. Despite the fact that scholars since antiquity had published fairly accurate calculations, Columbus clung to fringe theories that shrunk the globe by almost 1/3. His math was impossible, unrealistic, and transparently flawed. It didn't matter. Columbus believed in it. Rejection and opportunity. When Columbus presented his proposal to King John II of Portugal, his advisors dismissed him immediately. They saw through the faulty measurements and knew the journey would be too long for any existing ship to survive. Portugal rejected him. But Columbus was as persistent as he was ambitious. He began pursuing the Spanish monarchs, Ferdinand and Isabella. Their experts rejected his plan as well, but curiosity, rivalry, and political calculation kept Columbus near the royal court, living on a small allowance as a just-in-case investment. And in Spain, Columbus's personal life grew even more complicated. A mistress and a calculated move. While living in Córdoba, Columbus entered a relationship with a young orphan, Beatriz Enriquez de Arana. She later birthed his second son, Fernando. In a move that revealed the future explorer's political cunning, he named the boy after King Ferdinand, a blatant attempt to flatter the monarch. By the early 1990s, Spain had just completed its conquest of Granada, ending centuries of Muslim rule on the Iberian Peninsula. Flush with triumph and hungry for trade advantages over rival kingdoms, Ferdinand and Isabella finally granted Columbus his opportunity. In 1492, he received funding, ships, and sweeping promises. Governorship over any new lands and a tenth of all wealth derived from them. It was the boldest contract any explorer had ever been given. The first voyage and the first signs of illness. In August 1492, Columbus set sail westward. 5 weeks later, he sighted land. Not the Indies, as he believed, but the island of Guanahani in the Bahamas. He met the Lusayans, Taino, and Arawak peoples, observing their gold earrings and immediately seeking the metal's origin. He also wrote that they would make excellent servants. This was the beginning of a pattern that would darken every one of his voyages. Still clinging to his flawed geography, Columbus insisted he had landed in Asia. He would maintain this belief until the day he died. During his return journey to Spain, Columbus encountered a devastating storm and something else, a crippling attack of what he believed was gout. The attack left him trembling, weak, barely able to function. It would not be his last. The second voyage and a settler rebellion. Welcomed back to Spain as a hero, Columbus soon embarked on a second voyage, this time with settlers and soldiers, not just explorers. But when he returned to the fort he had left behind in Hispaniola, he found it destroyed. Local Taino people, retaliating against the abuses of Columbus's men, including assaults and kidnappings, had killed every settler. Enraged, Columbus launched years of brutal retribution. Under his rule, indigenous women were distributed to settlers. Girls as young as 9 and 10 were reported as being given away. Enslavement became systematic. Resistance was met with mutilation and death. Even Spaniards suffered his wrath. A woman who insulted him had her tongue cut out. A man accused of stealing corn had his ears and nose severed. The governor Columbus had become was far more feared than respected. The third journey and growing unrest. On his third journey, Columbus returned to an island boiling with tension. Settlers felt betrayed by the lack of gold. Indigenous people were rebelling against cruelty, and Columbus's health was rapidly deteriorating. Besides the supposed gout attacks, he experienced fevers, vision loss, and episodes of bleeding from the eyes. Still, he clung to power. But word of his tyranny had reached Spain. Arrested, in chains. In 1500, the crown sent Francisco Bobadilla to investigate. What he found shocked him and confirmed many of the worst rumors. Bobadilla seized Columbus's property, took over his residence, and arrested him. The great explorer was shipped back to Spain in chains. But in a stunning political reversal, Ferdinand and Isabella ultimately believed Columbus's explanations. They restored his wealth, condemned Bobadilla's overreach, and approved a fourth voyage. Columbus had one last chance. The final voyage, shipwreck, humiliation, and desperation. During his fourth expedition, storms ravaged his fleet. By 1503, his ships were destroyed, and he was stranded in Jamaica. The new governor of Hispaniola despised Columbus and intentionally delayed any rescue attempts. Months passed, supplies dwindled, tensions rose.
To survive, Columbus used astronomical charts to predict a lunar eclipse, convincing local tribes that he possessed supernatural powers. The trick worked and kept his men alive. After a year marooned, he was finally rescued and returned to Spain, only to discover that the monarchy no longer intended to honor the promises made to him. His titles and wealth would not be restored. A slow and painful death. Broken, exhausted, and chronically ill, Columbus spent his final years fighting the crown for compensation he would never receive. On May 20th, 1506, at the age of 54, he died surrounded by pain that had haunted him for decades. While his death was attributed to gout at the time, modern historians believe Columbus likely suffered from reactive arthritis, triggered either by severe food poisoning during his voyages or by a sexually transmitted infection. His illness, his temper, his blinding bursts of pain, all may have stemmed from a disease he carried through every journey. A legacy built on myth and reality. Columbus's name would eventually dominate world history, but in the centuries immediately after his death, he was largely forgotten. Many suspected during his lifetime that he had never reached Asia. His failures as a governor were well known. His cruelty was no secret. And the final blow? He wasn't even the first European in the Americas. The Vikings, led by Leif Erikson, had landed in North America centuries earlier. Yet the legend of Columbus rose anyway, reshaped by political needs, national myths, and cultural reinvention. The real story. Behind the symbols and celebrations lies a man driven by ambition, faith, greed, ego, and a desperate hunger for recognition. A man whose miscalculations shaped continents. A man whose brutality scarred entire peoples. A man who suffered physically and mentally through years of illness and isolation. A man who changed the world, but paid a devastating price for it.